Hello, my friends. I'm Tammy Zonker, host of the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. I have some exciting news for all you fundraisers and major gift officers. This October 13th through the 15th, join us for the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving's Major Gifts Fundraising Program. Save your spot today and get 3 days of certified, high-impact training packed with cutting-edge strategies and time-tested wisdom designed to help you scale faster, ask bolder, and raise bigger gifts with confidence. I'll be there leading sessions called Art of the Role Play and Securing the Visit and Making the Ask, and Thinking Bigger, Bolder, and Braver. I'll be joined by some of the most accomplished major gift fundraising experts in the sector, like our amazing Dean Doug Dillon, Cherian Koshi, Dr. Russell James, Maya McGill, Jeff Spitko, Birgit Burton-Smith, Ashley Nall, Coach Tivy from Practivate, your AI-powered practice partner for making big asks, plus other incredible leaders in the field. This is your chance to learn directly from the very best. If you've ever struggled with major donor prospects ghosting you, felt anxious making big asks, or wished for more qualified prospects in your pipeline, and so much more, this seminar is for you. You'll get practical, AI-powered tools and proven strategies to help you build confidence, uncover new prospects, and turn maybe later into a six-figure yes. Plus, we'll show you proven ways to keep your donors connected and engaged for the long term. Seating is limited, so don't wait. Learn more and reserve your spot today at modernicg.com. And unlock advanced major gift fundraising training trusted by over 12,000 alumni. Plus, you can earn 15 CFRE points toward your certification. That's modernicg.com. I can't wait to see you there.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach to creating a successful fundraising strategy and plan.
People are nervous, right? It's a big deal. We're raising $10 million, even if we're raising $1 or $3 million, depending on the size of the org.
Major gift fundraising is not deadline driven. It really is probably the only type of fundraising, along with planned giving, that is not deadline driven.
AI comes on the scene that's affordable, accessible, that can provide insights and personalization at scale.
That's the first core element of this fundraising engine or funnel, is making sure that the top of your funnel, the beginning of your fundraising process, you are in front of the right people.
What do the people we serve need? And how do we open the door to help them get there?
What happens a lot of times is we get this discomfort or this fear, and our brain tells our body to stop.
We can acquire donors and we can automate everything. And that's where I worry, at least personally, around the perils of AI, that it would remove humans from the interaction.
This is the Intentional Fundraiser podcast.
Have you ever noticed how the words we use shape the way we think, lead, and even fundraise? Here's the thing. If you change your words, you change your world. Neuroscientists will tell you that the language we use every day, the metaphors, the shorthand, even the casual cliches, actually wires pathways in our brains. Over time, those words don't just describe reality, they create it. So when we say things like tips and tricks or low-hanging fruit in fundraising, we might think we're being harmless, maybe even clever, but in reality, we're reinforcing a belief system that positions fundraising as transactional, manipulative, or worse, dishonest. That's why today I want to take us on a journey into the power of language in fundraising, how it shapes donor relationships, and how it shapes us. Welcome to the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Zonker, fundraiser, trainer, coach, and champion for everything intentional in this noble profession we share. Today's episode is one that's been simmering inside me for months. It's about the language we use in the nonprofit sector and why we need to be more mindful of it. Specifically, I'm making a plea to eliminate phrases like tips and tricks when we talk about engaging donors, because giving is not a trick. Donors are not targets, and we are not magicians trying to perform sleight of hand to win gifts. A little context. We are in a moment where donor numbers are steadily declining. According to Giving USA, fewer households are giving year after year. On top of that, there's a trust gap. Many donors don't know whether their contributions are making a difference or whether organizations are truly stewarding their gifts with integrity. With that backdrop, language matters more than ever. Every word we use in an email, on the phone, in our appeals, and in our boardrooms influences not just how donors see us, but how we see ourselves. This episode is going to unpack why outdated cliches like tips and tricks harm our profession, how brain science reveals the connection between language and belief systems, examples of shifts in language that elevate fundraising conversations, and practical steps you can take to align your words with your values starting today. Let me start with a story. A few years ago, I was coaching a young fundraiser. We'll call her Louise. She was bright, energetic, and deeply committed to her organization's mission. But in one of her board presentations, she stood up and said, "I'm going to share 3 quick tricks you can use to ask for donations." And I watched the room change, eyebrows raised. A trustee actually chuckled, not because Louise wasn't smart or valuable or right, but because her choice of words told the wrong story. Tricks implied manipulation. A shortcut? A gimmick? In that moment, her credibility took a hit, even though her content was solid. Afterward, I gently pulled her aside and asked, "Do you really want your board members thinking that fundraising is about tricking people?" She laughed, embarrassed, and admitted she hadn't thought about it. But here's the thing. Language like that is everywhere in our sector. It's so common. We don't even stop to consider how it lands. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond semantics. Brain science tells us that words are not just descriptors, they're programming tools. When we repeat certain language long enough, our brains accept it as truth. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Newberg, who studies neurotheology, explains that words literally alter the neural pathways of the brain. Positive or constructive language strengthens networks associated with trust, empathy, and creativity. Negative or manipulative language activates the amygdala, reinforcing fear and defensive behavior. So when we in fundraising talk constantly about chasing dollars or hitting up donors, guess what happens? We begin to internalize those concepts. We start to believe subconsciously that fundraising is inherently extractive rather than relational. We see donors as ATMs instead of as whole people. And donors can feel that shift because language shapes not just our thoughts, but our tone, our posture, even our energy. In other words, the words we use literally wire us for either empathy and abundance or fear and scarcity. Now, add this to trends in our sector. Donors today crave empathy, transparency, and authentic community. They're giving less to large institutions and more to smaller grassroots organizations because they want to feel that real human connection. They want to belong, not be worked on. So when fundraisers use language that feels transactional, it's not just outdated, it's toxic. It reinforces the very patterns that are driving donors away. Think of it this way. Imagine you were planning a dinner for friends. Would you say, "I've got some tricks for getting people to enjoy my cooking"? Of course not. You'd say, "Here are some ways I create a memorable experience," because dinner with friends isn't about tricks. It's about love, care, hospitality. Fundraising is much the same. It's not about outsmarting people into giving. It's about creating experiences of generosity and community. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what's one phrase you've been using in your fundraising vocabulary that, if you're really honest, diminishes the nobility of your work? Maybe you've said low-hanging fruit. Maybe you've talked about hitting up donors. Maybe you've even described wealthy donors as having deep pockets. Take a moment, say that phrase out loud. Then notice how it feels in your body. Heavy, sour, maybe a little uncomfortable. That's because your body knows what your brain hasn't yet processed. Those words don't reflect the values we claim to hold. Let's look at an example of shifting language intentionally. An organization I worked with had been running a campaign centered around the phrase, "We need you to help us hit our goal." Pretty common, right? The problem is that hitting a goal sounds like a sporting event. It puts the organization, not the donor, in the spotlight. We reframed their language. Instead, they began saying, "Together, we can ensure every child in our city has a safe place to learn and grow." Notice the difference? One is about the organization's scoreboard. The other is about shared values, community, and tangible impact. And you know what? Their donor response improved significantly, not because the donor base mysteriously changed, but because the donors could now see themselves in the story. Let me offer you some practical alternatives, tools you can use the very next time you write an email or prepare for a donor visit. Instead of tips and tricks, try strategies and practices or proven approaches. Instead of low-hanging fruit, say natural first steps. Instead of hit up donors, say invite support or engage partners. Instead of deep pockets, say generous hearts or abundant resources. Notice the shift in energy? One set of words feels diminishing. The other feels respectful, abundant, empowering. Here's something I want you to internalize. Fundraising is not a transaction, and it's not even primarily about money. It is about identity, belonging, and purpose. Language is one of the key tools we use to communicate that deeper truth. Think about how much more motivated you feel as a fundraiser when you say, "I help build communities of generosity," instead of, "I bring in dollars." That's not woo-woo, that's neuroscience. That's mindset. That is the difference between burnout and resilience. I remember years ago, someone suggested I write a book called Fundraising Hacks, and I laughed out loud because the idea of hacking generosity sounded like the worst possible metaphor. Can you imagine saying to a donor, "I just hacked you into giving"? I think some of them might literally run in the opposite direction. Let me ask you, what would your fundraising sound like if every word you used came from a posture of empathy, integrity, and abundance? What would your communications look like? What would change in your boardrooms or with your staff? Let me break down 3 takeaways you can implement today. The first is audit your language. Start by noticing the fundraising words you use most often. Which ones feel transactional? Which elevate the donor's humanity? Keep a running list. Number 2 is reframe with abundance. For every diminishing phrase, create 2 or 3 alternatives that affirm generosity and partnership. Write them on a sticky note. Post them on your desk. The third is train your team. Don't stop with yourself. Bring this conversation to your board, staff, and volunteers. Help them practice the language of empathy. Remind them, if you change your words, you change your mindset. And if you change your mindset, you change your outcomes. Friends, fundraising is a noble profession. It is about inviting people into community and purpose. Let us not diminish that with language of tricks, hits, and low-hanging fruit. Instead, let us elevate the words, because words build worlds, not just in our donor communities, but in our very selves. So next time you feel tempted to use a tired cliche like tips and tricks, stop. Instead, choose words rooted in integrity, empathy, and respect. Your donors will feel the difference, and you will too. Thank you for joining me on the Intentional Fundraiser podcast. Until next time, keep transforming your fundraising so you can transform the world.
The Intentional Fundraiser podcast is a Fundraising Transformed original. I'm Trent Thompson, executive producer, CMO, and head of community at Fundraising Transformed and the Modern Institute for Charitable Giving. The Intentional Fundraiser podcast has been recognized by FeedSpot as one of the top 80 fundraising podcasts on the web. This recognition means so much to us, and it wouldn't be possible without your incredible support, encouragement, and thoughtful engagement. Every listen, share, and conversation has helped us grow and reach more passionate fundraisers like you. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to review and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen. For resources mentioned in this episode and to subscribe to our Scaling Major Gifts newsletter, visit fundraisingtransformed.com.